demonstrations continue over the death of the African-American teenager Michael Brown. Tensions are high after an independent autopsy carried out at the instruction of the family has revealed that the black teenager was shot at least 6 times, including twice in his head. Greg Carr is the chair of the Africana Studies and Professor of Africana Studies and chair of the Afro-American Studies at Howard University. Thank you so much for joining us, Greg.
It's my pleasure. My pleasure to be with the BBC.
What does this whole incident say about wider American society? Is there anything to be read into it?
Well, of course. I think this just speaks again to the systemic racism in America. And, this isn't much of a surprise to America's black citizens. Police brutality is a staple of black life, unfortunately, in far too many communities. And what's going on in Ferguson, I think, through a combination of social media and the kind of recent spate of killing of black youth by white police officers in this country, is just revealing something that's been there for a very long time.
Because we had the recent incident in New York City of the black man who was killed after being held in a chokehold by police.
That's exactly right. Eric Garner in New York, Jordan Davis, and of course Trayvon Martin in Florida. There was another death in Los Angeles last week. And of course, social media, which is of course something that we're really all trying to get our arms around, has rushed out ahead of mass media and in some ways is shaping this narrative.
Because one of the things which you always ask at instances like this is, if it has been happening for so long, what makes this so different?
Well, I think, again, it's the technology that plays a major role. I do think as well, however, that we have an interesting dynamic. We have the first black president of the United States, and Barack Obama. We have a black attorney general. And we have a very interesting interplay of race working its way out through law enforcement. Ron Johnson, the Ferguson native, who is now over the state troopers, clashing in some ways with the local police force in Ferguson.
Would you have wanted a stronger statement from President Obama? Because some have been criticizing him and saying that he was too clinical. Do you feel that he could have done it a lot more, especially being a black man himself?
Barack Obama has walked such a fine line when it comes to race during his presidency that I think many black Americans have just come pretty much to expect the type of statements that he's made. Personally, I would have loved to have seen a stronger statement. But I do understand that the president is trying to balance a number of forces and trying to get something done his last couple of years in office. However, I will say that the Attorney General, I think that Eric Holder has probably been the most
activist Attorney General in the United States for a long time.
For a very long time. Maybe back to the days of Bobby Kennedy. Who knows? He was certainly more experienced than Bobby Kennedy was, but I'll say this. He has probably been the most consistent voice on race and race issues. And I think there are a lot of folks in black America who are grateful to the Attorney General for that.
What do you say to people who might suggest that black people in America sometimes tend to play victim because the fact of the matter is there will be black people who commit crimes?
Well, I think that, the answer to that is quite simple. I think African people around the world have found themselves in a political economy that has victimized them. And it strikes me as a student of Africana, the parallels between Africans in the United States and African people other places. But I do think that when people come to the United States and see the condition of black people, they find it very difficult to factor in the political and economic dynamic of American racism. In fact,
but there are also black people who've actually broken that out and gone on to be pretty successful. So doesn't that sort of negate that argument? Have we lost him?
Without a doubt.
Could you just come back? I think we lose.
Well, no, it's interesting.
Could you just repeat your statement?
Okay, yes. Let me hold on for a second. I think we may
And we're just actually running out of time, unfortunately, Greg Carr, because we're just coming up to the half-hour mark. Greg Carr, thank you so much for joining us. It's a shame we didn't have a lot more time to cover that story. Chair of the Department of Afro-American Studies at Howard University. Fascinating topic and something which is going to be discussed in the coming weeks and months. This is Newsday on BBC World Service.